The close call had a profound impact on both of them. Julian's trust in Lena deepened exponentially. He no longer saw her merely as an asset, but as an indispensable partner, a woman of impossible power and unwavering courage. He started to encourage her to train more rigorously, not just for defense, but for offense. He believed that with proper control, her abilities could be a decisive force against General Vane. Danger was an old acquaintance. Threats, whispers of corporate espionage, and the occasional outright assassination attempt were merely inconvenient footnotes in his relentless pursuit of progress. His security detail was a phantom limb, an omnipresent shield of ex-military operatives, cybersecurity specialists, and impenetrable biometric systems. He moved through a world of high stakes, where a misstep could mean ruin, or worse. Yet, despite the constant undercurrent of peril, Julian Thorne had always been untouchable, a diamond in a fortress. His heart, however, was as inaccessible as his most guarded servers. It was a place where no one dared to venture, and where he himself rarely lingered. He saw emotions as vulnerabilities, attachments as liabilities, and in the cold, precise calculations of his mind, he had long ago deemed them unnecessary for survival, let alone success. Lena, for her part, began to push past her fear. The thrill of saving lives, of actively fighting back, was a powerful motivator. She allowed herself to delve deeper into her past memories, sharing more details with Marcus Vance and Julian about Project Chimera, hoping to find a weakness, an Achilles heel, in the very thing that had created her. The symbol of the eagle and serpent, the code names, the faint echoes of the scientists' voices, every piece of the puzzle slowly began to fit. Miles away, nestled amidst the bustling anonymity of a forgotten district, Lena Petrova lived. Her world was a quiet, almost reclusive existence, a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of the city around her. She was a whisper in a storm, a shadow in broad daylight. To any casual observer, Lena was frail, unassuming, with a delicate frame and eyes that seemed to hold an ancient, unreadable sorrow. She worked as a librarian in a small, dusty public library. Her days spent cataloging forgotten tales and losing herself within the pages of countless stories. Her uniform, sensible skirts, muted sweaters, and thick-rimmed glasses was a deliberate camouflage, designed to render her invisible. Their forced proximity, the shared danger, and the raw vulnerability exposed during the attacks began to chip away at the last remnants of their emotional walls. Late-night discussions in Julian's private study, reviewing intelligence reports, often drifted to personal revelations. Julian found himself sharing fears he'd never voiced aloud. The crushing weight of global responsibility, the fear of failure, the profound loneliness of his position. Lena listened, her quiet understanding a balm to his isolated soul. But Lena's frailty was a meticulously crafted disguise, a performance she had perfected over years of solitary living. Beneath the quiet demeanor and the gentle smile lay a secret that thrummed with a dangerous energy, a truth so profound and terrifying that she had dedicated her entire life to keeping it buried. Her past was a labyrinth of hushed whispers and forgotten institutions, a childhood spent not in playgrounds, but in sterile laboratories, subjected to experiments she could barely remember, yet whose consequences she carried in every fiber of her being. And in turn, Lena confessed the full, terrifying truth of her escape, not a quiet slip away, but an uncontrolled, devastating surge of power that had inadvertently leveled a significant portion of the Chimera facility, resulting in casualties. The memory haunted her. The reason she had suppressed her powers for so long. She feared she was a monster, capable of indiscriminate destruction. She remembered fragments, flashes of bright lights, the sting of needles, the hushed, excited voices of scientists, and the chilling sensation of her own body defying the laws of physics. She remembered the day she escaped, not with a roar, but with a silent, desperate surge of power that had left a path of devastation in its wake. Since then, Lena had built her life around absolute anonymity, a desperate hope that if she remained small, hidden, and unremarkable, they would never find her. She lived with a constant low-level hum of anxiety, a primal fear of discovery. Every sudden noise, every unfamiliar face, sent a jolt of ice through her veins. Her greatest fear was that her abilities, her terrible gift, would one day resurface, shattering the fragile peace she had so painstakingly constructed. Julian listened without judgment. "You are a child, Lena," he said, his voice gentle. "You were terrified. You were fighting for your life. That wasn't an act of malice. That was survival. And with control, with guidance, that power can be used for good, for protection." One rainy Tuesday, the worlds of Julian Thorne and Lena Petrova intersected. Not by choice, but by a twist of fate. Julian was attending a press conference at the city's grandest convention center, a meticulously choreographed event designed to unveil Thorne Global's latest breakthrough in quantum computing. The air crackled with anticipation, the hum of cameras, and the nervous energy of journalists. Julian stood at the podium, his voice calm, authoritative, detailing the future he was building. His security team, a silent ring around him, scanned every face, every shadow, their senses honed by years of training. His belief in her, his unwavering acceptance of her darkest truth, was a revelation. For the first time, Lena felt seen, truly seen. Not as an experiment, not as a weapon, but as a person, flaws and all. And in that acceptance, a powerful, undeniable attraction began to spark between them. It wasn't the fleeting superficial kind of attraction, but a deep, resonant connection born from shared trauma, mutual respect, and a profound understanding of each other's hidden depths. Lena, on a rare outing beyond her usual routine, had been coerced by a fellow librarian, an overly enthusiastic young woman named Clara, to attend a literary panel held in an adjacent hall. She had slipped away from Clara, seeking a moment of quiet solitude in the crowded corridors. She found herself inadvertently in the main atrium, a vast, echoing space with a glass ceiling that offered a distorted view of the gray, overcast sky. She watched the throngs of people, a silent observer in a world she felt detached from. One evening, after another intense training session, Lena found Julian in his office, reviewing security footage of the latest skirmish. He looked tired, lines of exhaustion etched around his eyes. She approached him, a quiet concern in her gaze. Her gaze drifted, then snagged on the massive projection screen displaying Julian Thorne's press conference. She had read about him, of course, seen his face on magazine covers. He was an intimidating figure, powerful and unyielding. As she watched him speak, a strange, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her. It wasn't fear, nor admiration, but something else, a deep-seated instinct she rarely acknowledged. "You should rest, Julian," she said softly. "You're pushing yourself too hard." High above, nestled in a hidden perch on an adjacent skyscraper, a sniper exhaled slowly. His target, Julian Thorne, was perfectly framed in his scope. The military-grade rifle was custom-built, silent, precise. The orders were clear: eliminate the CEO, swiftly and cleanly. Julian Thorne was a threat to a shadowy faction within the military, a rogue unit that saw his global influence and technological prowess as an impediment to their own clandestine agenda. They believed his disruptive innovations could expose their operations, and his very existence was a risk to their carefully laid plans for global dominance through technology control. The sniper's finger tightened on the trigger, the cold calculation of a professional fulfilling his mandate. The world below, unknowingly, was moments away from chaos. He looked up, his gray eyes, usually so sharp, softening as they met hers. "I can't rest, Lena. Not while they're still out there. Not while you're still a target." He reached out, his hand gently cupping her cheek. His touch was warm, comforting, yet charged with an unspoken emotion. Lena, amidst the casual flow of the crowd, felt a sudden, inexplicable shift in the air. It was a subtle vibration, a disturbance in the fabric of reality that only she could perceive. A prickling sensation ran across her skin, a familiar, terrifying warning. Her vision seemed to sharpen, the sounds around her fading into a distant hum. Time, for her, seemed to stretch, to slow to an agonizing crawl. She saw the glint of light from the sniper's scope, miles away, reflected in a distant window. She saw the almost invisible ripple in the air as the bullet left the barrel, a metallic whisper tearing through the atmosphere at impossible speed, aimed directly at Julian Thorne's head. "And you're not just a tool to me anymore, Lena," he murmured, his thumb lightly stroking her skin. "You're more..." Her heart leaped into her throat. Instinct, raw and untamed, seized control. This was not a calculated decision. It was a primal reflex born from years of suppressing the very thing she feared. Her frail disguise shattered in an instant. Her body moved before her mind could even process the thought. A blur of motion that defied human capability. Lena leaned into his touch, her heart thrumming. The unspoken words hung in the air, electric and undeniable. The professional distance, the calculated alliance, had crumbled, revealing the raw, undeniable emotions beneath. The hunter was closing in, but in the crucible of their shared danger, something beautiful and unexpected was blooming between the cold CEO and the frail girl with the impossible power. Love had indeed arrived, quietly, powerfully, forged in fire. The rooftop skirmish, though repelled, had been a brutal awakening. It wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration of war. Julian Thorne, having witnessed Lena's impossible capabilities firsthand, understood the true scope of the battle ahead. His initial objective of protection evolved. Lena was not merely someone to be shielded. She was a critical, extraordinary asset. And more profoundly, a person he found himself deeply, irrevocably drawn to. Julian Thorne, mid-sentence, felt a sudden, inexplicable gust of wind, a ripple in his perfectly controlled environment. His security detail, trained to react in microseconds, were already tensing, sensing something amiss, but it was too late. The bullet was a whisper away. Lena, too, had undergone a seismic shift. The fear that had long suppressed her abilities began to recede, replaced by a fierce determination. The act of saving Julian, of actively deflecting the rocket, had ignited something dormant within her, a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. She no longer saw her powers as a monstrous curse, but as a potential force for good, a shield against the very darkness that had haunted her. Then, she was there, a wisp of a girl, seemingly appearing out of thin air, a flash of muted gray and brown. Her hand, delicate and pale, shot out, not to push him, not to pull him, but to meet the incoming projectile head-on. There was a sound, not a bang, but a sharp, metallic thwack, like a stone hitting steel, followed by a sickening crunch. The bullet, miraculously, impossibly, stopped. It crumpled slightly at the impact, deformed against something unbelievably dense, and fell to the polished marble floor. Their joint investigation intensified. Julian, leveraging the full, unparalleled might of Thorne Global's intelligence network, began to unearth the deepest secrets of General Silas Vane. His analysts, under the shrewd direction of Marcus Vance, worked tirelessly, cross-referencing Lena's fragmented memories with obscure military records, black market intelligence, and whispers from the shadowy underworld. Lena, her face contorted in a silent scream of agony, collapsed. Her hand, the one that had dared to defy physics, hung at an unnatural angle, bone and flesh grotesquely twisted. A single drop of blood, startlingly bright against her pale skin, stained the pristine floor. Her glasses had fallen off, revealing eyes that, for a fleeting moment, blazed with an intensity that bordered on the otherworldly. Before consciousness fled, and she lay still, a crumpled heap of unassuming fabric and shattered bone. Her secret exposed for all to see. Lena spent hours recounting every detail she could dredge from her suppressed past, the chilling codenames, the symbol of the eagle and serpent, the distinct hum of the facility's machinery, the faces of scientists she remembered as the overseers. She described the nature of the tests, not just physical conditioning, but attempts to push cognitive limits, to enhance sensory perception, and to stimulate latent kinetic abilities. She revealed that the children were referred to as subjects and given numerical designations, never names. She was Subject 7. The entire atrium erupted into chaos. Security agents swarmed Julian, pushing him to the ground, shouting orders. Journalists screamed. Cameras flashed, capturing the scene of the thwarted assassination. And the seemingly frail girl who had impossibly caught a bullet barehanded, Julian Thorne, alive, unharmed, stared at the fallen girl, his cold, analytical mind grappling with the impossible, the unfathomable. Who was she? How did she do it? And why had she, an apparent stranger, sacrificed herself for him? His isolated world had just collided with an anomaly, a secret, and a power he couldn't comprehend. His life, and hers, had just become irrevocably intertwined. The world returned to Lena Petrova in fragments of pain and disorienting light. The first sensation was a throbbing, relentless ache in her right hand, a white-hot spear of agony that eclipsed all else. Then came the soft hum of machinery, the antiseptic scent of a hospital, and the murmur of hushed voices. She tried to open her eyes, but her eyelids felt heavy, glued shut by exhaustion and the residual fog of sedatives. She was alive, a fact that surprised her more than anything. The last thing she remembered was the bullet, a cold, hard projectile, slamming into her palm, and the sickening crunch of bone. Julian listened to it all, his mind a steel trap, piecing together the grim puzzle. The more Lena spoke, the clearer the picture became. Project Chimera was a covert, unsanctioned military endeavor, an experimental super-soldier program from decades past, designed to create an elite class of enhanced operatives. Lena was one of its few survivors, a testament to her unique constitution, or perhaps a terrifying anomaly. When her eyes finally fluttered open, she found herself in a room unlike any hospital room she'd ever seen. It was spacious, minimalist, and adorned with subtle, high-tech equipment that glowed with a faint, almost ethereal light. The bed was incredibly comfortable, the sheets impossibly soft. This was no ordinary public hospital. This was a private, highly exclusive medical facility, a fact confirmed by the discreet, efficient nurses who moved with the quiet grace of shadows. Concurrently, Julian's team began to uncover General Vane's current obsession, Project Cerberus. Initial intelligence indicated it was a highly classified, state-of-the-art super-soldier program, seemingly a refined continuation of Chimera. Vane, a decorated but notoriously ambitious and morally ambiguous general, had been subtly siphoning funds and resources from legitimate defense projects, building his own private army, equipped with bleeding-edge technology. His true objective was to create an unstoppable force, loyal only to him, designed to seize control of critical global infrastructure, including Thorn Global's vast tech empire, under the guise of national security. And then she saw him, Julian Thorn. He sat by her bedside, not in a crisp suit, but in a more casual, yet still impeccably tailored, dark shirt. His gaze, usually cold and analytical, was fixed on her with an intensity that made her instinctively recoil. His jaw was tight, a muscle twitching in his cheek, betraying an inner turmoil she hadn't thought him capable of. The connection between Chimera and Cerberus became chillingly clear. Vane was attempting to replicate and perfect the successes, and avoid the catastrophic failures, of the older program. Lena, as an escaped and remarkably potent subject, was not just a target of elimination. She was a key, the missing link. Her unique physiology, her innate kinetic manipulation, held the answers Vane desperately sought to stabilize and amplify the powers in his new batch of subjects. He didn't just want her, he needed her. "You're awake," he stated, his voice a low rumble, devoid of any obvious emotion, yet carrying an undeniable weight. One evening, deep in Julian's private, soundproofed intelligence hub, Marcus Vance brought them a breakthrough. "We found it," he announced, his voice tight with grim satisfaction. "A heavily encrypted off-grid server. It belonged to Dr. Alistair Thorne. No relation to you, Julian, but a notorious figure in Black Ops biological research back in the day. He was one of the lead scientists on Project Chimera, and his recent communications indicate he's now working directly for General Vane on Project Cerberus." Lena tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her voice a croak. She glanced at her right hand, encased in a thick, gleaming cast that looked more like a futuristic brace than a medical appliance. The pain was still there, dulled but persistent. A cold dread seeped into the room. The web of deceit was deeper, more personal than they had imagined. General Vane wasn't just a rogue general with a lust for power. He was deliberately continuing a monstrous legacy, using Lena's very past as his blueprint. What happened?" she managed to whisper, though she knew, with a horrifying certainty, exactly what had happened. As they delved into Dr. Thorne's encrypted files, they discovered detailed schematics, horrific experiment logs, and chilling projections for Project Cerberus. The general intended to create an army of enhanced soldiers, impervious to conventional attacks, with capabilities mirroring and potentially surpassing Lena's own. The files also revealed the general's personal vendetta against Julian. Vane saw Thorn Global's open-source, decentralized tech advancements as a direct threat to his vision of controlled, centralized power. Julian's refusal to align his company with certain government initiatives had made him a direct enemy, a major obstacle to Vane's rise. The sniper attempt hadn't just been a precaution, it had been a deliberate move to destabilize his influence. Julian leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "You caught a bullet, Miss Petrova, barehanded, a military-grade projectile aimed squarely at my head, in front of 100 witnesses and a dozen news cameras." His voice was flat, but the implications hung heavy in the air. Her secret, the one she had guarded with her life, was out, exposed. Amidst these grim revelations, the bond between Julian and Lena deepened irrevocably. Their late-night sessions, fueled by coffee and a shared sense of urgency, often devolved into moments of raw honesty. Julian, once so guarded, now found himself confiding his deepest anxieties to Lena, the immense weight of his company's global impact, the responsibility he felt for his employees, and the profound isolation that came with his position at the apex of power. Lena listened, her quiet understanding a balm to his usually impenetrable facade. She saw the man, not just the CEO, burdened by the world. Panic, cold and visceral, seized her. "No," she breathed, pushing against the pillows, trying to sit up, a futile attempt. "No, that's impossible. I don't remember." The lie felt hollow, pathetic, and Lena, in turn, found the courage to reveal the full, terrifying truth of her escape from Chimera. It wasn't just a failure of the project. It was an uncontrolled, devastating surge of her powers, a kinetic shockwave that had inadvertently leveled a significant portion of the facility, causing catastrophic casualties. The memory haunted her, the reason she had suppressed her powers for so long, fearing she was a monster. Julian's eyes narrowed. "Don't insult my intelligence. Miss Petrova, my security team analyzed the footage from every angle. The bullet was traveling at Mach 2. It deformed upon impact with your hand. The physics are impossible. Unless you're not human." Julian listened without interruption, his gaze unwavering. When she finished, a long silence hung between them. "You were a child, Lena," he finally said, his voice low, gentle, filled with a compassion that surprised them both. "You were terrified. You were fighting for your life. That wasn't an act of malice. That was pure, desperate survival. And with control, with guidance, that power can be used for immense good, for protection, for justice." Lena flinched, the accusation stinging. Though it was closer to the truth than he knew, she looked away, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. This was her nightmare come true. They would come for her now. The ones from her past, the ones who had created her, then lost her. His belief in her, his unwavering acceptance of her darkest, most terrifying truth, was a revelation. For the first time, Lena felt truly seen, truly understood, not as an experiment, not as a weapon, but as a person, flaws and all. The acceptance was a powerful balm, healing wounds she hadn't known were still bleeding. In that shared vulnerability, a powerful, undeniable attraction blossomed. No longer a tentative spark, but a roaring flame. It was a connection born from shared trauma, mutual respect, and a profound understanding of each other's hidden depths. "Who are you, Lena Petrova?" Julian pressed, his voice losing its detached quality, a hint of steel entering it. "And why did you save me?" The danger, however, was far from over. General Vane, realizing that his assassination attempts had failed and that Lena was not only alive but actively working with Julian, intensified his efforts. He sent a wave of relentless, increasingly sophisticated attacks. Thorn Global's security systems were pushed to their limits. Every perimeter alarm screaming, every cyber defense tested. The city lights below Julian Thorn's penthouse office were a glittering tapestry, a stark contrast to the glacial calm of the man observing them. Julian Thorn, CEO of Thorn Global, a tech behemoth whose tentacles reached every corner of the digitized world, was a king in his own right. His empire was built on a foundation of ruthless innovation and a strategic foresight that bordered on prescience. He was a force of nature in bespoke suits, his reputation preceding him like a chilling wind. Feared by competitors, revered by his loyal few, and utterly isolated by choice. Julian lived a life encased in layers of steel and silence. One particularly harrowing night, a team of Cerberus operatives, enhanced with prototype strength and speed, breached the outer defenses of Julian's most secure R&D facility, where Lena was undergoing advanced training simulations. Their objective was clear capture. Lena, she remained silent, tears pricking at her eyes, not from physical pain, but from the overwhelming terror of discovery. The facility became a war zone. Julian, who had insisted on being present during her training, found himself at the heart of the chaos, his strategic mind already calculating defense protocols, routing his security teams. Lena, however, was no longer merely reacting. Under the guidance of Sergeant Hayes, she had been rigorously training, learning to channel her kinetic abilities with precision and control. Julian seemed to understand her fear, though he didn't offer comfort. Your hand is broken, but it will heal. My medical team is the best in the world. They are curious about your unique bone density and cellular regeneration. He paused, letting that sink in. Your secret, whatever it is, won't remain secret for long. Miss Petrova, not from me. She moved through the facility like a ghost, a blur of impossible speed. She didn't just deflect bullets, she subtly twisted their trajectory, sending them harmlessly into walls. She didn't just absorb impact, she redirected it, turning the force of a Cerberus operative's punch back against them, sending them sprawling. She created localized kinetic fields, momentarily disorienting attackers, buying precious seconds for Julian's security team to neutralize them. The pain was still immense, but she pushed through it, her focus unwavering, her eyes burning with a controlled power. He then shifted, his expression darkening. Someone sent a sniper to kill me. A very professional, very efficient sniper. They failed, thanks to you, but they won't give up. And now, they know about you. They saw what you did. Julian watched her, a mix of awe and terror in his heart. He saw the sheer beauty of her power, raw and unbridled, but also the immense strain it put on her delicate frame. He saw her grimace in pain, then push harder, driven by a desperate need to protect. And in those moments, amidst the chaos and danger, his love for her solidified, fierce and absolute. She wasn't just an ally, she was everything. This jolted Lena more than the pain in her hand. The word echoed the chilling whispers of her childhood nightmares. The military faction, the shadowy organization that had run the experimental program. They would see her as an anomaly, a failed yet potentially valuable asset that had escaped their grasp. And they would want her back. Or, if they couldn't have her, they would want her eliminated. The thought made her skin crawl. He fought alongside his security team, not with enhanced abilities, but with the brutal efficiency of a man protecting his most precious treasure. He barked orders, his voice cutting through the gunfire, coordinating defenses, leading Lena to strategic positions where her powers could be most effective. He placed himself between her and direct threats whenever possible, a human shield against the onslaught. I don't know, Lena whispered again, but this time her voice held a tremor of genuine fear, not denial. I just reacted. It was instinct. The attack was eventually repelled, but it came at a cost. Several of Julian's security personnel were injured, and the facility itself sustained significant damage. Lena collapsed once more, her body shaking, sweat pouring down her face. Julian was immediately by her side, supporting her, his hand gently stroking her hair. Julian studied her, his gaze unwavering. He knew she was holding back, but he also saw the genuine terror in her eyes. He was accustomed to people lying, manipulating, trying to gain something from him, but her fear seemed raw, authentic. He stood up, walking to the large window that overlooked the city. You pushed yourself too hard, he murmured, his voice thick with concern. My investigation is already underway, he said, his voice returning to its usual controlled tone. Every camera, every communication log, every minute detail from that incident is being analyzed by my best people. They're good, very good. They will find out who sent that sniper. And they will find out about you, Lena Petrova, with or without your cooperation. He turned back to her, his eyes piercing. The question is, do you want to be a pawn in their game or an ally in mine? They won't stop, Lena whispered, her eyes wide with exhaustion, but also a new, hardened resolve. They'll keep coming. Until they have me. Or until we stop them. Lena lay there, the implications weighing heavily on her. If Alexander Thorne's formidable resources couldn't protect her from the organization that had created her, then nothing could. She was caught between two powerful forces: the ruthless CEO who demanded answers, and the shadowy faction that sought to reclaim or destroy her. Julian held her gaze, a fierce light in his own eyes. Then we stop them, he stated, his voice unwavering. Once and for all, we have the truth now. We know their plan. It's time to unmask the puppeteers. Lena? And then, we end this. Meanwhile, miles away, in a secure, clandestine military bunker, the atmosphere was anything but calm. General Silas Vane, a man whose face was etched with the grim lines of ambition and ruthless pragmatism, watched the replay of the assassination attempt with a cold fury. The elite sniper, Ghost, was one of his best. Never failed. Until now. The confrontation was no longer just a possibility. It was an inevitability. Julian and Lena. Their bond forged in the crucible of shared danger and profound revelations, were ready to face the full might of General Vane's clandestine operation. The final stand was coming, and they would face it together. The revelations about General Silas Vane's Project Cerberus and the terrifying truth behind Dr. Alistair Thorne's involvement ignited a new, fierce resolve in both Julian and Lena. The game had escalated from defense to offense. They knew the enemy's full scope, their sinister agenda, and the depths of their depravity. It was no longer about survival. It was about dismantling a global threat. "Explain this!" General Vane roared, slamming his fist on the holographic display showing Lena's impossible interception. "Explain how a civilian, a seemingly frail young woman, catches a high-velocity bullet with her bare hand. This is an anomaly, a security breach of epic proportions. Julian, with his unparalleled strategic genius, transformed Thorne Global's intelligence hub into a war room. Holographic displays projected intricate schematics of Vane's hidden facilities, real-time data streams flowed, and a constant hum of analysis filled the air. His team, fiercely loyal and highly skilled, worked around the clock. Marcus Vance, the astute former CIA operative, meticulously cross-referenced every scrap of information, constructing a comprehensive blueprint of Vane's operations. His chief of intelligence, Colonel Anya Sharma, a sharp, calculating woman, stepped forward. "General, our preliminary analysis indicates a unique biological anomaly. Her bone density, muscular reaction, and kinetic absorption capabilities are off the charts. We believe she might be a residual subject from Project Chimera, the one we believed was terminated during the initial phase failures decades ago." Lena, meanwhile, pushed her training to new, grueling extremes. Sergeant Hayes, her combat instructor, adapted his methods, recognizing the unique nature of her abilities. No longer merely deflecting, Lena learned to channel her kinetic manipulation with pinpoint precision. She practiced creating localized force fields, not just for defense, but to subtly redirect objects, to disarm opponents without direct contact, or to create momentary distortions in the air that could disorient. She honed her reflexes, her senses so acute she could predict movement before it happened. The pain was still a constant companion, but her resolve, fueled by Julian's unwavering belief in her, pushed her past every limit. She was no longer just Subject 7. She was Lena, a force ready to fight. General Vane's eyes widened, a predatory gleam entering them. Project Chimera, a top-secret, highly unethical super-soldier program from a forgotten era, one he had always dismissed as a myth. Chimera? You mean, she's one of them. A success or a dangerous, unstable remnant. Their primary research facility for Project Cerberus is located deep within the abandoned military complex in the Mojave Desert. Marcus reported one grim morning, pointing to a sprawling, heavily guarded satellite image. It's a fortress, heavily armed, with sophisticated internal defenses. Dr. Alistair Thorne is there, leading the final phases of Cerberus. "Unclear, sir," Colonel Sharma replied, "but her reaction time and ability to withstand direct kinetic impact are undeniable. She is a living weapon, General, and she just saved Julian Thorne's life." Julian's jaw tightened. And General Vane? Julian Thorne. General Vane spat the name like a curse. The man whose global tech empire is already a thorn in our side. His AI networks, his quantum computing advancements, they're too disruptive, too uncontrollable. He's a threat to our covert operations, to our future plans. And now he has a walking, talking anomaly by his side. This complicates everything. He's expected to oversee a major demonstration there within 72 hours, Marcus confirmed. A showcase of their first fully operational Cerberus subjects. That's our window. His gaze sharpened, falling on the crumpled bullet that had been recovered from the scene, displayed in a sterile containment unit. The objective hasn't changed, General Vane stated, his voice chillingly calm. Thorne must be eliminated. But now, we have a secondary objective. Capture the asset. The Chimera subject, if she can catch a bullet, imagine what else she can do. She could be the key to perfecting our own super soldier program. Project Cerberus, or if she proves too unstable, too much of a liability, she must be neutralized. The plan that Julian devised was audacious. A multi-pronged assault designed to expose Vane's illegal operations to the world, cripple his financial network, and, critically, neutralize Project Cerberus before it could unleash its horrors. It wasn't just about a raid. It was about strategically collapsing Vane's entire clandestine empire. He looked at Colonel Sharma, his eyes glittering with cold resolve. Shift all resources. The target is now Dual Thorne, and the girl. Find her, contain her, and bring her to me. Alive, if possible. Dead, if necessary. And send a clear message to Thorne. This is just the beginning. We hit them where it hurts most, Julian explained to Lena, his gaze intense. Their finances, their data, and their most precious asset, their super soldiers. You, Lena, are the key to the last part. Your abilities are their undoing. Back in Julian's private facility, Lena was beginning to heal, her hand showing remarkable signs of regeneration, just as Julian had implied. But the physical healing was overshadowed by her growing terror. She knew they would come. The discovery of her survival, of her powers, would send ripples through the clandestine world she had tried so hard to escape. Lena nodded, her eyes burning with determination. The thought of confronting the architects of her nightmares, the twisted minds who sought to replicate her suffering, filled her with a cold fury. Julian, meanwhile, was relentless in his pursuit of answers. He rarely left the facility, overseeing the investigation, demanding updates. He watched Lena through observation cameras, noting her subtle movements, her moments of quiet despair. He saw the flicker of something extraordinary in her, something that transcended the simple act of saving his life. He saw a power that both fascinated and unnerved him. The attack began under the cloak of night. Thorne Global's cyber operatives launched a massive, coordinated assault on Vane's digital infrastructure, flooding his networks with untraceable data, causing widespread chaos and exposing encrypted financial transactions to a waiting international watchdog agency. This was Julian's play, the silent hand of a tech titan dismantling a rogue general's financial backbone. He walked into her room, his presence filling the space. "My team has identified the sniper," he announced, his voice devoid of triumph. An ex-military operative, highly trained, untraceable. He disappeared without a trace after the shot. Simultaneously, a small, elite strike team, handpicked by Julian and led by Sergeant Hayes, infiltrated the Mojave Desert complex, their objective to secure Dr. Alistair Thorne and gather irrefutable physical evidence of Project Cerberus. Lena was with them, not as backup, but as the vanguard. Julian, against the fervent pleas of his security team, insisted on accompanying them. "This is my fight too," he had stated, his resolve unyielding. "And Lena needs me." Lena's eyes widened. They won't give up, will they?" she whispered, her voice laced with fear. As they breached the outer perimeter, a chilling silence enveloped them, broken only by the crunch of their boots on the desert sand. Inside, the complex was a labyrinth of sterile corridors and fortified labs. They moved swiftly, a well-oiled machine, Julian's tactical genius guiding their every step. Lena's heightened senses detecting unseen threats. Julian's gaze was direct, unflinching. "No, this isn't just about me anymore. Lena, you are now a target, a valuable target. To be precise, he watched her carefully. They want you. For what purpose? I don't yet know. But your existence changes their entire game. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed, casting long, ominous shadows. They had been detected. A squad of Cerberus operatives, the very super soldiers Vane had created, appeared from the shadows. Their movements unnaturally swift, their eyes devoid of emotion. They were larger, stronger, and faster than regular soldiers, a chilling echo of Lena's own enhanced capabilities. But without her humanity. He paused, then offered the deal again, this time with more weight, more urgency. I have the resources to protect you, Lena. My security is unmatched. My intelligence network is global. But I need to understand what you are, and why you did what you did. I need your full cooperation. Tell me your story. Tell me everything. Lena, now. Julian's voice was calm, authoritative. He saw the conflict in her eyes, the deep-seated fear of exposure warring with the desperate need for protection. She was cornered, vulnerable. Lena met the charge head-on. She was a blur of motion, her powers manifesting as subtle shifts in the air, distortions of kinetic energy. The first operative lunged, a powerful punch aimed at her head. Lena didn't block it directly. Instead, she subtly manipulated the air pressure around his fist, creating a momentary resistance that slowed his punch by mere milliseconds, just enough for her to sidestep and redirect his own momentum, sending him stumbling past her. I can give you protection, Lena, Julian reiterated, stepping closer to her bed, his voice low and serious. Absolute, unwavering protection from those who seek to harm you, or worse, control you. But in return, you will tell me everything. Every detail of your past, your abilities, everything you know about the organization that made you. This is not a request. Lena, this is the only way you survive this. Another operative fired his weapon, the bullets spitting from the barrel. Lena didn't catch them. Instead, with a flash of her hand, she created a localized kinetic field, a ripple in the air that caused the bullets to curve harmlessly into the ceiling. She then unleashed a precise burst of focused kinetic energy, a silent shockwave that hit the operative square in the chest, sending him flying backward, unconscious. Lena looked at his outstretched hand, not the one that had been crushed by a bullet, but the one offering a lifeline. It was a cold, calculated alliance, born of necessity and fear, but it was an alliance nonetheless. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was her only chance. The frail girl, caught between a powerful CEO and a shadowy military faction, was about to step into a world far more dangerous than she could ever have imagined. A world where her secret was not just a burden, but a weapon. Lena's gaze lingered on Julian Thorne's outstretched hand, a lifeline offered from a man whose world was antithetical to everything she had ever known. His words echoed in her mind. This is not a request, Lena. This is the only way you survive this. The raw truth of it settled heavy in her chest. She was indeed cornered, her carefully constructed anonymity obliterated by a single, impossible act. The terror of her past, the shadowy figures who had shaped her into this anomalous being, loomed larger than any fear of Julian Thorne himself. With a deep, shuddering breath, Lena finally spoke, her voice still hoarse. What? What do you want to know? Julian's hand remained extended, an unspoken promise of protection, or perhaps a silent challenge. Everything, he reiterated, his voice firm. Start from the beginning. Why a librarian, Lena Petrova, possesses the ability to stop a bullet barehanded. He fought alongside Sergeant Hayes and the rest of his team, his own movements sharp, precise. He used his knowledge of the facility's layout, acquired from Marcus Vance's intel, to guide his team, taking down operatives with swift, brutal efficiency. He moved with a newfound ferocity, a protectiveness he hadn't known he possessed, always ensuring he was between Lena and any overwhelming threat. He wasn't just fighting for his company, he was fighting for her. And so, the carefully constructed walls around Lena began to crumble, brick by agonizing brick. She began to speak, her voice low and hesitant at first, then gaining a fragile momentum. She didn't offer a complete narrative, not yet. The full truth was too vast, too terrifying, even for her. Instead, she offered fragments, veiled truths, pieces of a childhood that sounded more like a science fiction nightmare than reality. The deeper they went, the the more resistance they met. The Cerberus operatives became more numerous, more aggressive. Lena felt the pain of using her powers, a deep ache in her bones. But she pushed through, fueled by the unwavering image of Julian fighting beside her, and the burning desire to end Vane's madness. She spoke of being an orphan, placed in a specialized care facility at a very young age. She described the sterile white rooms, the ceaseless tests, the doctors who spoke in hushed, excited tones about advancements and breakthroughs. She mentioned the subtle changes she noticed in herself as she grew older, heightened senses, a disconcerting awareness of kinetic energy, and occasionally, uncontrolled bursts of strength or speed. She spoke of the pervasive sense of being different. They finally reached the central laboratory, a vast, sterile chamber filled with grotesque machinery and rows of terrifying, suspended incubation tanks holding dormant Cerberus subjects. Dr. Alistair Thorne was there, his face contorted in a mix of panic and scientific zeal. Surrounded by more armed guards, General Vane, his eyes glittering with cold fury, stood beside him, watching Lena's impossible advance through the security cameras. They called it Project Chimera, Lena finally whispered, the name a chilling echo from her forgotten past. It was an experimental program. They were trying to enhance human capabilities. They used children. Her voice cracked, a flicker of profound pain in her eyes. I don't remember much, only snippets. And then, the chaos. The escape. Lena Petrova. General Vane's voice boomed through the lab's intercom. Subject 7, you were a failure, an unstable anomaly, but you're also the key. Surrender now, and you can live. Become part of Project Cerberus, and we will perfect you. You will be unstoppable. She explained how, during a catastrophic failure of the project, a term she heard repeatedly in her fragmented memories, a chance presented itself. Panic, fire, screaming. She didn't know how, but she had used her abilities in a way she never had before. A surge of uncontrollable power that had allowed her to slip away in the confusion. Since then, she'd lived in hiding, constantly terrified that they would find her. The librarian facade was her ultimate defense, a way to disappear into the mundane. Lena stood at the threshold, her body trembling with exertion, but her gaze was resolute. I am not a subject. Vane, she said, her voice echoing with a power that surprised even herself. And I will never be your weapon. Julian listened, his expression unreadable, but his eyes never left hers. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer judgment. He was processing, analyzing, connecting the fragmented truths to the impossible feat he had witnessed. When she finished, a heavy silence descended, broken only by the soft hum of medical machinery. With a roar of frustration, General Vane unleashed his most advanced Cerberus subjects, a small squad of fully activated, terrifyingly powerful soldiers, their eyes glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. They moved with lightning speed, their enhanced strength palpable. Project Chimera, Julian finally mused. The name unfamiliar to him, a rare occurrence, a government initiative or private. The final stand had begun. Lena shook her head. I don't know. It was always so secretive. Shadows, whispers. They didn't use real names. Lena focused, her senses flaring. She saw every minute twitch of their muscles, every shift in their weight, every flicker of kinetic energy that preceded their movements. She met their charge, a silent whirlwind. She didn't just dodge, she flowed around them, a force of nature. One operative lunged with a bladed weapon. Lena subtly nudged his arm, sending the blade spinning harmlessly past her, then unleashed a focused kinetic pulse that slammed him into a reinforced wall, leaving a dent. Another tried to grab her. She twisted, creating a vortex of energy that spun him off his feet, disorienting him long enough for Sergeant Hayes to neutralize him. Julian stood up, walking to the window again, his back to her. Your abilities, how do they work? What else can you do? Julian, seeing Lena push herself to the brink, unleashed his own tactical genius. He uploaded a virus into the lab's control systems, disabling their power, plunging the facility into emergency lighting. He activated EMP devices, disrupting the Cerberus operatives' enhanced implants, causing them to falter, their movements becoming erratic. He was the conductor of chaos, creating openings for Lena and his team to exploit. I don't fully understand, Lena admitted, her voice low. It's like I can perceive kinetic energy, see its path, feel its force, and sometimes, if I'm desperate enough, if my life is on the line, I can manipulate it, slow it down, absorb it, but it causes immense pain, and it drains me. It's not something I can control. Not really. Not safely. She didn't mention the raw, almost destructive power she had unleashed during her escape. That was a truth too dangerous to reveal, even to Julian Thorne. Dr. Thorne, Julian yelled, cutting through the din. Your experiments are over. The world will know what you've done. Julian turned, his gaze sharp. And you used this instinct to save me. It wasn't a question, but a statement of fact, imbued with a strange mix of disbelief and grudging respect. You consciously chose to sacrifice your anonymity and risk your life for a stranger. Dr. Thorne, seeing his work crumbling, frantically tried to activate a self-destruct sequence for the lab to destroy all evidence, but Julian, anticipating this, had already cut the connection. Lena looked at him, her eyes reflecting the complex mix of emotions swirling within her. It was instinct, she repeated. The simplest, most honest answer. I saw the bullet. I knew what would happen. I just reacted. It was too fast to think. And beneath that, a deeper, unspoken truth, a flicker of empathy for the man who, despite his cold exterior, was also just a human being facing an assassin's bullet. Lena, with a final, desperate surge of power, confronted General Vane. He pulled a pistol, aiming it at Julian. In a moment of impossible speed, Lena placed herself directly in front of Julian, her hands raised. The bullet hit her, not with a bone-shattering impact, but with a sickening squelch. She absorbed it, the kinetic energy dissipating within her, but the sheer force caused her to stumble, a jolt of pure pain shooting through her. Julian nodded slowly. Very well. Your story, while incomplete, provides context. He walked back to her bedside, a tablet in his hand. Here is my proposal. Lena Petrova, you will remain here, under my protection. My security is unmatched. My network of intelligence operatives is global. Those who targeted me, and now you, will find it impossible to breach my defenses. Before Vane could fire again, Julian was on him, his years of suppressed aggression erupting. He disarmed the general with a swift, brutal move, then slammed him against the wall, his own eyes burning with cold fury. You tried to kill me, he snarled, and you tried to enslave her. Your reign of terror ends now, he continued, his voice resonating with cold authority, outlining the terms of their new, calculated alliance. In return, you will cooperate fully with my team. You will undergo medical evaluations, non-invasive, to understand your physiology, not to exploit it. You will work with my intelligence analysts, sharing every detail you can remember about Project Chimera, about your past, every name, every location, every fragment of information, no matter how insignificant it seems. Sergeant Hayes and his team secured Dr. Thorne and General Vane, their defeat absolute. The remaining Cerberus operatives, their enhancements faltering, were quickly subdued. The victory was hard-won, but complete. He paused, his gaze intense. My goal is twofold: to eliminate the threat against me, and to neutralize the organization that created you. They are a danger to both of us. And, he added, a hint of something resembling genuine care entering his tone, to ensure you are safe, truly safe, for the first time in your life. Lena collapsed, panting, the adrenaline fading, leaving her utterly drained. Julian was instantly by her side, his arm around her, supporting her. Lena, are you all right? He asked, his voice thick with concern, his hand checking for injuries. Lena swallowed, the magnitude of his offer dawning on her. Julian Thorne wasn't just offering protection, he was offering to wage war on her behalf, to dismantle the very entity that had haunted her for decades. It was a tempting, terrifying proposition. It meant giving up her anonymity completely, immersing herself in a world of danger she had always sought to avoid. But it also meant a chance at true freedom, a life no longer lived in constant fear. Just tired, she whispered, leaning into him, her head resting on his shoulder. The pain was immense, but it was a righteous pain, the cost of their victory. And if I refuse, she asked, though the words felt futile even as she spoke them. In the shattered silence of the lab, with the captured villains and the defeated super soldiers around them. Julian looked at Lena. Her face was pale, her body weary, but her eyes, though exhausted, held a triumphant light. He had witnessed her raw power, her incredible courage, and her profound humanity. The cold, calculating CEO found his heart overflowing with something he had never thought possible, an unyielding, absolute love for the frail girl who had caught a bullet, fought a war, and saved not just his life, but his soul. The battle was won, and in the aftermath, love, forged in the crucible of danger, had finally, undeniably, arrived. The silence that descended upon the Mojave Desert complex was profound, almost deafening. After the chaotic crescendo of the final stand, the metallic tang of spent ammunition mingled with the antiseptic smell of the laboratories, a grim testament to the battle that had just unfolded. General Silas Vane and Dr. Alistair Thorne, their faces a mask of stunned defeat, were swiftly secured by Sergeant Hayes and his elite team. The remaining Cerberus operatives, their enhancements neutralized by Julian's EMPs and their will broken by Lena's impossible power, were systematically rounded up. Julian's expression hardened, his eyes cold and unwavering. Then you remain a target. Lena, a very valuable one. My security can keep you safe for a time? Yes. But they will find you. And when they do, they will either reclaim you as an asset or eliminate you as a liability. Either way, your quiet life ends. He paused, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. This is not a threat, Lena. It is a fact. And I'm offering you a choice: remain a victim, or become an ally in a fight that is now undeniably yours. Lena leaned heavily against Julian, her body trembling from the exertion, every muscle aching, every nerve screaming in protest. The pain was immense, a deep throb where the bullet had impacted her hand, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of relief, a liberation she hadn't dared to dream of. The nightmare, the relentless hunt, was finally over. The choice, when laid out so starkly, was no choice at all. Lena was tired of running, tired of hiding. The years of fear had taken their toll. This man, ruthless as he might be, was offering a path to fight back, to reclaim not just her safety, but perhaps a piece of the life that had been stolen from her. Julian held her close, his strong arm around her, his gaze sweeping over the secured lab, then back to her face, searching for any sign of injury. "Are you truly all right?" he murmured, his voice husky with concern. His cold, calculating exterior had completely dissolved, replaced by a raw, overwhelming protectiveness. I agree," Lena finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I will cooperate, but no more experiments, no more needles, no more labs." A tremor ran through her at the memory. "I will be," she whispered, leaning into his warmth. "It's over. Julian, it's really over." Julian nodded, a subtle acknowledgement. "Agreed. My medical team is strictly for treatment and understanding, not exploitation. And no information will leave this facility without your consent. Your privacy, within the bounds of this alliance, will be respected." He extended his hand again, this time truly offering it for a shake. "Welcome to Thorn Global, Lena Petrova. Our lives just got a lot more complicated." The aftermath was a whirlwind of activity. Thorn Global's rapid response units swarmed the complex, securing all evidence, from Dr. Thorn's chilling research logs to the dormant Cerberus subjects in their incubation tanks. Julian orchestrated every detail with ruthless efficiency, ensuring that nothing was overlooked. The sheer scale of the operation, its ethical depravity, and its implications for global security were staggering. Lena cautiously reached out her left hand, her right still in the futuristic brace. Her fingers were swallowed by his large, strong grip. The handshake was firm, a silent sealing of their pact. Within hours, the world's most powerful intelligence agencies, alerted by Julian's preemptive data leaks and backed by the irrefutable evidence found at the site, descended upon the Mojave facility. General Vane and Dr. Thorne were handed over to international authorities, their illicit operations now irrevocably exposed. The news broke like a cataclysm. Headlines screamed of a rogue military faction, a horrifying super soldier program, and the audacious CEO who had personally led its takedown. As Lena began her recovery, A new routine settled in. Her days were no longer filled with the quiet rustle of library pages, but with the hushed efficiency of Julian's medical and security teams, doctors, specialists in trauma and genetics, meticulously monitored her healing, their fascination with her unique physiology barely concealed. They ran non-invasive scans, observed her remarkable cellular regeneration, and recorded data that baffled even their extensive medical knowledge. Lena, though wary, found their approach surprisingly respectful, a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal experimentation of her past. But the most shocking revelation, the one that captivated the public and sent shockwaves through scientific and defense communities, was the existence of Lena Petrova. The grainy, enhanced security footage from the initial assassination attempt, showing her catching a bullet barehanded, was leaked by Julian's team, carefully edited to portray her not as a dangerous anomaly, but as an unsuspecting hero. She also began working with Julian's intelligence analysts, a small, elite team led by a former CIA operative named Marcus Vance, no relation to her. She quickly learned. But the surname caused a brief, unsettling ripple. Marcus was sharp, methodical, and possessed an uncanny ability to piece together seemingly disparate facts. Lena recounted every fragmented memory, every fleeting image, every whisper she could recall from Project Chimera. The sterile white walls, the blurred faces of a few key scientists, the code names they used for the children, Subject Alpha, Subject Beta. She remembered a symbol, a stylized eagle with a serpent entwined around it, carved into a wall in one of the facilities. Julian, with his masterful control over information, meticulously shaped the narrative. Lena was presented as an extraordinary individual who, through a rare, innate physiological gift, had instinctively acted to save a life, ultimately becoming instrumental in exposing a global threat. He spoke of her with reverence, emphasizing her courage and her inherent goodness, carefully sidestepping the darker, experimental origins of her abilities. At least for now, he knew the world wasn't ready for the full truth, but he would protect her from being exploited or feared. Julian watched, awestruck, as Lena danced through the battlefield, a graceful, lethal force. She wasn't just deflecting, she was disarming, disrupting, neutralizing. She understood the flow of energy, making their enhanced strength and speed their own undoing. She was beautiful in her terrifying power, a testament to resilience forged in suffering. The public reaction was a mix of awe, disbelief, and a wave of admiration. Lena Petrova, the frail girl who caught a bullet, became an overnight sensation, a symbol of extraordinary courage. There were calls for her to be studied, to be recruited, but Julian, with his formidable legal and security teams, created an impenetrable shield around her. He ensured she was seen as a humanitarian asset, not a military one. The military faction, under General Silas Vane, was indeed escalating its efforts. Colonel Sharma, receiving the failure report from the sniper, had immediately dispatched a specialized retrieval team. Their primary objective: secure the Chimera subject. Their secondary: eliminate Thorn. Amidst the global uproar, Julian and Lena found solace in the quiet sanctuary of his penthouse. Lena's recovery continued at an astonishing pace, her body rapidly mending itself, a testament to her unique physiology. She still experienced bouts of exhaustion after exerting her powers, and the phantom pain in her hand occasionally returned. But the physical scars were fading. The emotional ones, however, were slowly healing under Julian's unwavering care. The first attempt came subtly, a sophisticated cyber attack targeting Thorn Global's lower-tier security systems, designed to create a momentary vulnerability, a window for infiltration. Julian's cybersecurity detected it within seconds. The attack was repelled, but it confirmed General Vane's determination. Their relationship, once a calculated alliance, now blossomed into an all-consuming love. The shared crucible of danger had stripped away all pretense, revealing their truest selves. Julian, the once cold and isolated CEO, was now open, tender, and deeply devoted. He found joy in the simple things with Lena, their quiet mornings, her soft laughter, the way her eyes lit up when she discussed art or a new discovery. He saw her not just as his equal, but as his complement, the warmth to his cool logic, the humanity to his ambition. The next was more direct. a team of highly trained operatives, disguised as utility workers, attempted to breach the perimeter of Julian's private facility, seeking to disable the power grid and create an opening. Julian's physical security team, led by a formidable ex-Special Forces commander, intercepted them before they even reached the outer wall. A brief, brutal skirmish ensued, ending with the operatives either captured or neutralized. Lena watched the security footage from her room, a cold dread settling in her stomach. They were getting closer. Lena, having found true acceptance for the first time in her life, shed the last vestiges of her fear. She no longer felt the need to hide, to pretend. Julian's love was a protective embrace, a validation of her existence, powers and all. She reveled in his sharp intellect, his unexpected humor, and the profound sense of safety she felt by his side. She had always sought invisibility. Now, with Julian, she finally felt truly seen. Julian entered her room after the incident, his face grim. "They're coming for you, Lena. These weren't petty thieves. They were professionals, and they won't stop." He held up a small, sleek device. "We recovered this from one of their operatives, a tracking beacon. It was designed to locate and tag individuals with specific genetic markers." "Your genetic markers, Lena?" The legal proceedings against General Vane and Dr. Alistair Thorne were swift and damning. Faced with an overwhelming mountain of evidence, including Lena's testimony and the captured Cerberus subjects, they had no defense. General Vane was charged with treason, illicit military operations, and countless human rights violations. Dr. Thorne faced charges of unethical human experimentation, corporate espionage, and complicity in Vane's heinous schemes. Justice, in its most undeniable form, was served. Their empire of horror collapsed, their names forever synonymous with depravity and betrayal. Lena's blood ran cold. The thought of being hunted, of her very essence being tracked by those who sought to control her, was a nightmare made real. They know exactly who I am," she whispered, her voice trembling. One evening, weeks after the trial, Lena sat sketching in her studio, the city lights twinkling outside. Julian entered quietly, placing a cup of her favorite tea beside her. He watched her for a moment, the serene focus on her face, the easy flow of her hand across the canvas. "They know what you are," Julian corrected, his voice firm, "but not who you are, not the real Lena Petrova, and we won't let them find out. We're going to fight back, Lena, and we're going to win." "The last of Vane's assets have been seized," he announced, his voice gentle. "Project Cerberus is completely dismantled. The remaining subjects have been transferred to secure, ethical facilities for rehabilitation and medical care, under the supervision of independent humanitarian organizations." He held her gaze, a silent promise in his eyes. The cold, calculated alliance was transforming. In the face of a common enemy, a shared threat, a nascent bond was forming between the formidable CEO and the unassuming librarian with an impossible secret. Lena, despite her fear, felt a surge of something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope, and a strange, undeniable trust in the man who had become her unlikely shield. The alliance between Lena Petrova and Julian Thorne, born of desperation and the shared shadow of a relentless enemy, quickly solidified into a complex partnership. Lena's physical recovery was astonishingly rapid. Her hand, once grotesquely broken, healed at an accelerated rate that continued to confound Julian's medical team. But the deeper work was just beginning the understanding and control of her extraordinary abilities. Lena put down her charcoal, turning to him, a soft smile on her lips. "And Dr. Thorne," Julian, ever the pragmatist, saw Lena's power not just as a defense, but as a crucial asset in their fight against General Vane. He assigned his most trusted combat and tactical specialists to work with her. Initially met with skepticism by the hardened veterans, they saw a frail librarian, a woman who looked like she could be blown over by a strong gust of wind. Lena, for her part, was deeply wary. The thought of deliberately engaging with her powers, of pushing their limits, brought back a flood of terrifying memories from Project Chimera. "Sentenced to life," Julian confirmed, his voice devoid of satisfaction, merely stating a fact. His research, however, will be repurposed, not for control or destruction, but for understanding, for healing. He sat beside her, taking her hand. The scientific community will learn from it, but ethically, your past, Lena, will not be repeated. Her first training sessions were tentative, almost painful. Under the watchful eye of a gruff but patient ex-Special Forces operative named Sergeant Hayes, another coincidence of names that made Lena subtly uneasy, she began with basic drills. Hayes would throw weighted objects, first soft, then increasingly harder, at her, instructing her to perceive their kinetic energy, to feel their trajectory, and to subtly alter their course. She started by deflecting a tennis ball, then a baseball, the subtle hum of energy around the object growing clearer in her senses with each attempt. The effort, however, left her drained, her hand aching with a phantom pain. He squeezed her hand, his gaze meeting hers, profound love shining in his eyes. "You saved me, Lena. More than just from a bullet, you saved me from myself. From a life of cold isolation. You brought light into my world." Julian often observed these sessions from a discreet distance, his sharp gaze missing nothing. He noted the way Lena's eyes would sharpen, her entire demeanor shifting from fragile to fiercely concentrated. He saw the sheer effort it took her, the beads of sweat on her brow, the tremble in her muscles as she pushed past her limits. He wasn't just observing a subject, he was witnessing a warrior in reluctant making, a fragile flame burning with immense potential. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "And you, Julian," she whispered, "you gave me a future, a purpose beyond fear. You showed me that my power isn't a curse, but a gift, and that love, true love, can make anything possible." As Lena's control improved, so did the nature of their bond. The detached professionalism that had defined their initial interactions slowly began to erode. During breaks, Julian would often join her, not to interrogate, but to simply talk. He shared details of his own past, not the carefully curated public persona, but glimpses of the driven, often lonely boy who had built an empire from nothing. He spoke of the intellectual challenges he relished, the constant pursuit of pushing boundaries. He found himself drawn to her quiet resilience, her genuine curiosity about the world beyond her sheltered existence. Their journey had been fraught with danger, secrets, and betrayal. But from the ashes of a shattered past, a new dawn had risen. Julian, the cold, powerful CEO, had found his heart opened by an unsuspecting girl, and Lena, the frail girl with an impossible secret, had found belonging, love, and a destiny far grander than she could have ever imagined. Their intertwined lives, forged in the crucible of fire and resilience, were a testament to the fact that even in the face of insurmountable odds, love can conquer all, and justice, eventually, always prevails. In the serene aftermath of the storm, General Vane and Dr. Alistair Thorne were brought to justice, their nefarious operations completely dismantled. The world slowly began to process the shocking revelations of Project Cerberus and the extraordinary existence of Lena Petrova. Julian, with his unparalleled influence, ensured that Lena's story was told with care, emphasizing her courage and humanity, protecting her from the inevitable scientific and governmental scrutiny that would follow. She was portrayed not as a weapon, but as a hero, a testament to resilience and an unforeseen gift to humanity. Lena, in turn, began to see past the ruthless CEO facade. She saw his sharp intellect, yes, but also a fierce sense of loyalty to his people, a surprising protectiveness, and a subtle, dry wit that occasionally broke through his stoicism. She saw the heavy burden of responsibility he carried, and the profound isolation that came with his power. He wasn't cold, he was guarded, wary. Just as she was, their shared vulnerability, the understanding that they both carried deep, painful secrets, created an unspoken bridge between them. Lena's abilities, while now publicly known, were carefully managed and protected. Julian established a new foundation, the Prometheus Initiative, dedicated to ethically studying and understanding rare human capabilities, ensuring that no one would suffer the way Lena had. This initiative also focused on humanitarian aid, discreetly using advanced technology for disaster relief and global well-being. Lena became its quiet, guiding force, her extraordinary senses and kinetic intuition proving invaluable in ways beyond combat. The escalating attempts by General Vane's faction only served to cement their growing connection. Having failed at subtle infiltration, Vane became more aggressive, more desperate. His goal remained twofold: eliminate Julian Thorne and capture Lena Petrova, the Chimera subject, to unlock the secrets of Project Chimera and perfect his own Project Cerberus. A horrifying vision of weaponized super soldiers. Their love, forged in the crucible of danger and shared secrets, deepened with each passing day. Julian's once isolated heart, accustomed to the cold calculus of business, now beat with a warmth and tenderness he never thought possible. He found joy in Lena's quiet presence, her soft laughter, and the way her eyes, once filled with fear, now sparkled with life and purpose. He cherished their shared moments of peace, whether it was a quiet dinner in the penthouse or a leisurely stroll through a secluded park, far from the prying eyes of the world. The first major confrontation came during a controlled test of Thorne Global's new urban drone delivery system. Julian insisted Lena accompany him, disguised as an assistant, stating it was for her to observe real-world security protocols. In truth, he was testing her ability to operate outside the confines of their secure facility, and perhaps to keep her close. Lena, having found true belonging and acceptance, shed the last vestiges of her fear. She no longer felt the haunting need to hide. Julian's love was an impenetrable sanctuary, a validation of her entire being, powers and all. She embraced her unique abilities, not as a burden, but as a gift that, when channeled ethically, could contribute to a better world. She found profound fulfillment in her work with the Prometheus Initiative, using her unparalleled senses to locate missing persons, predict natural disasters, or even subtly stabilize delicate structures during rescue operations. As they stood on a rooftop overlooking the bustling city, a sudden, piercing whistle cut through the air, the sound of a high-velocity projectile. Lena's senses screamed. Time slowed. She saw the sniper round, larger and more lethal than the first, hurtling towards Julian from a distant, hidden skyscraper. Their life together was a delicate balance of global responsibility and private intimacy. Julian continued to lead Thorne Global, pushing the boundaries of technology for human advancement. But his relentless drive was now tempered by Lena's grounding presence. She taught him the beauty of vulnerability, the strength in connection, and the quiet power of compassion. He, in turn, empowered her, giving her the resources and the platform to embrace her full potential. "Down!" she yelled, her voice raw, pulling Julian violently to the ground just as the bullet tore through the air where his head had been moments before. The shot was followed by a volley of automatic weapon fire from another rooftop. There were still challenges. Of course. The world was a complex place, and whispers of new threats, new ambitions, would occasionally surface. But now, they faced them together, an unbreakable unit. Their trust in each other was absolute, a silent understanding forged through fire. Julian's security detail sprang into action, returning fire, creating a defensive perimeter. Chaos erupted on the rooftop. Lena, her heart pounding, felt a surge of adrenaline. She saw a group of armed operatives rappelling down from a helicopter, their black tactical gear a grim silhouette against the sky. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the city skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Julian and Lena sat on the penthouse balcony. Her hand, no longer visibly scarred, rested comfortably in his. Lena, go!" Julian yelled, pushing her towards the emergency stairwell, his own security team forming a human shield around him. "It's a beautiful world, isn't it?" Lena mused, her gaze sweeping over the glittering expanse of lights. "Even with all its shadows." But Lena didn't flee. She saw a rocket-propelled grenade launcher being aimed at Julian's position. Without thinking, she pushed off the ground, a blur of motion, her powers instinctively kicking in. She wasn't just deflecting a single bullet this time. She was subtly altering the trajectory of multiple projectiles. She moved with a fluid grace she didn't know she possessed, sidestepping bullets, her hands blurring as she subtly nudged incoming fire just inches off course, saving both Julian and his team repeatedly. She intercepted the RPG, not by catching it, but by subtly altering its internal gyroscopes, sending it spiraling harmlessly into the sky above them. The effort was immense, searing pain lancing through her, but the thought of Julian being hurt galvanized her. Julian squeezed her hand. "It is. And you, Lena, made it infinitely brighter. You saved me, and you helped save a piece of humanity from itself." Julian, observing from behind his shielded position, watched Lena fight. He saw not the frail librarian, but a force of nature, a whirlwind of impossible speed and kinetic manipulation. She was a living, breathing shield, absorbing or deflecting attacks with a grace that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. A profound realization hit him. She was far more powerful than she had let on. And seeing her risk everything, not just for herself, but for him and his team, stirred something deep within his cold, calculating heart. It was a surge of admiration, awe, and a fierce, protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. Lena turned to him, her eyes shining with unshed tears, but tears of joy, not sorrow. "And you, Julian," she whispered, "you gave me a future I never dared to dream of. A home, a purpose, and love, true love, that sees beyond the surface." The operatives, confused and disoriented by their inexplicable misses, were quickly overwhelmed by Julian's security team. They retreated, leaving behind a trail of spent casings and a profound sense of bewilderment. Their journey had been extraordinary, marked by a sniper's bullet, hidden powers, and a relentless pursuit. But from the ashes of a shattered past, a new dawn had truly risen. Julian, the cold, powerful CEO, had found his heart opened by an unsuspecting girl. And Lena, the frail girl with an impossible secret, had found belonging, love, and a destiny far grander than she could have ever imagined. Their intertwined lives, forged in the crucible of fire and resilience, were a testament to the fact that even in the face of insurmountable odds, love can conquer all, and justice, eventually, always prevails. In the aftermath, Lena collapsed, trembling, her body screaming in protest. Julian was by her side in an instant, his hands gently supporting her, his face etched with concern. "Lena, are you all right?" Thanks for watching. If you were captivated by Lena and Julian's incredible journey of danger, power, and unexpected love, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this story a thumbs up. Your support helps us bring more gripping tales of courage and destiny to life. Stick around for our next thrilling narrative, and while you're here, why not dive into our other videos? There's always another incredible story waiting for you. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We love hearing from our global audience. I used too much," she whispered, pain clouding her eyes. "It burns." He helped her up, his touch surprisingly tender. "You were incredible," he said, his voice husky with genuine emotion. "You saved us all." His gaze lingered on her, a new light in his eyes. Julian, meanwhile, was relentless in his own investigation. His network uncovered whispers of a clandestine military unit operating off-book, involved in highly experimental, ethically dubious projects. They were a ghost organization, leaving almost no digital footprint. But Thorn Global's reach was vast, and Julian possessed the kind of patience and cunning that could unravel even the most tightly guarded secrets.